Hello YouTube, Zopo here for my very first manga chapter review, and today I will be reviewing One Piece chapter 287, that is the very latest chapter. I won't be doing any Naruto or Bleach, at least not this week. I really don't have the time and don't really feel like it yet. So I have to say first, I'll start with a general comment that I really liked this chapter. I think it was great. I've liked the fight between Luffy and Doflamingo so far, but this was probably my favorite chapter of that fight. I like it much better than the previous one because I just like it more. No particular objective reason, it's just personal taste. Then for the rest of the review, which will probably how I'm going to do all my reviews, I'm basically doing page by page, and I'll just describe everything about each page of the manga. So on the first page we just have the results of Luffy's final attack of the previous chapter, which was the Kuvarin, which is a type of cannon, which isn't an animal but it's written with the kanji for python, so yeah. Dofi took a big hit, Luffy looking very miffed, and the people commenting that Luffy looks like a rubber ball beating on Dofi. Well, yeah, the hit was effective. Comments by I can't remember his name, I'm just gonna call him Cabbage because that's what Luffy called him all the time, and Law. And interesting is Law saying that Luffy is overusing his haki. So what does that mean? It could mean many things. We don't still really know exactly how haki works on a fundamental level. It must be taking something from the user, like stamina or energy. Of course, has been covered by everyone, or exactly what is haki and how it works. Truth is, we don't really know. But from my knowledge of Japanese and with Japanese people I've talked to have a better understanding, basic logic of haki is, basic translation would be ambition or willpower. Talk about that. But haki is written with two different kanjis, which are Japanese character, which each kanji isn't actually a word like many people say they are. They are a concept, which is a much more broad term, and haki is written with obviously ha in ki, ha being supremacy or dominance, and ki being, I'm sure everyone watching this video knows what ki is in that sense, but I'm just gonna cover it really briefly. It can be translated as energy, breath, life, aura, and it's the basic concept of life energy that exists in all things, which comes from China. So haki, while written as ambition, can just generally mean ambition. I think with the three types of haki that exist in One Piece, there are each take their form from the basically different interpretations of what haki is. Yeah, so three types of haki. The first being Buso, hard to say, Buso Shoku Haki, or armament haki. This is, I'm not exactly sure how that translates into one of the different meaning of the kanjis, but that has a lot to do, I think, with just the general martial arts idea of ki in the most basic sense. So I'm sure everybody's familiar with that from reading anything. Then you have the Kenbu Shoku Haki, which is again same thing, sensing one's energy is very common with just how ki works. So we really find that it's a big part of how haki function. And then you have Hao Shoku Haki, which is king or conquer king's haki, And I think this really takes the basic meanings of ambition and the alternate meaning of each kanji separately, of ha and ki being dominance or supremacy, and ki in the sense of aura, as an aura of supremacy or dominance, which I think really makes sense. And this isn't very relevant to the chapter, but I just thought I had to get my views on haki out there. And again, because it has ki inside, which is life energy, it's quite possible you need to use some of that, of your own stamina, to use it in practice in One Piece. So that's probably what Law meant. On the next page, finally, you just have Jesus Burgess commenting that, or about what he should do. Should he attack? Should he just leave them, or should he follow them? And you have Koala that suspected Burgess to be after Luffy, but she's not exactly sure why. So now, why would one of the commander of the Blackbeard pirates be after Luffy? And the Straw Hats, plenty of reasons possible. I'm really not gonna comment on that. Could be just the basic thing that it's been said the Blackbeard pirates are hunting for devil fruit, and the Straw Hats have a few users of them. And while Luffy's and Chopper's are not that great in most circumstances. I mean, Chopper's fruit would be useless for any human to eat. Luffy's is, in its most basic form, pretty lame. It's only after years and years of practicing with it and really thinking about how it works that he managed to get anywhere really useful with it. So, but you have Robin, which is a bit more useful, and then you have Brooke, which is really a massively useful power for most. I mean, you basically get a second life. Even Brooks doesn't know when he's gonna die, or if even he's going to die at all at this point. He's definitely not gonna die just from his body degrading, as it's just not gonna happen. I don't know. So, and then the last part of the page, you just have Violet, Viola, I can't remember now, it's Viola, I think is her real name, just reporting to her dad, the king, to what happened. Then following page, there's the Tontatas, the dwarf, moving out of the way of the factory, who is made of sea stone, so obviously it's not going to be cut by the powers of the strain, so nothing really to do with it. I suspect that they're going to be using this factory, the Smile Factory, to stop the birdcage. Maybe, maybe not. I think that would make sense. Like, get it up where the cage is the narrowest, so this way it will stop getting closer and leave a warrior area at the bottom. Like that, or somehow get everyone on the island in that factory, but I don't think it's nearly big enough to do that. And yeah, just Frankie commenting on it. Zoro and Kinemon going the wrong way. Zoro saying he's going to stop it. And yeah, Frankie has an ID, which I think, as I said, it's probably the idea I mentioned earlier, using the factory as a way to block the birdcage. I think that's the most logical thing to do. And then at the end of the page, we have finally back on the fight, and Tofi commenting on how Luffy is fusing his armament haki with rubber. And I found it interesting that in the previous chapter he was surprised that Luffy managed to remain rubbery while using armament. So it might be possible that usually if you use armament haki directly on your body, and you have eaten a devil fruit that alters the properties of your body, it cancels it. But if it did, I don't see how Luffy would be able to cancel the cancelling, for lack of a better word, at all, despite his best effort. Although maybe by inflating himself, just the air is taking care of the bounciness, while just his topmost layer of skin isn't quite as rubbery. I don't know. Then again, how armament haki works on Devil Fruit using them themselves is a bit of an odd issue. Like, the biggest question is does it really affect Logia users? Can they expend their body at all while using it? Because so far the only confirmed haki use we have of Logia users are Smoker and Sabo, but both only use them on their actual physical limbs while using their power on other parts of their body. So we do know for a fact that the admirals can use it, but we're not exactly sure how it works. And at the time when we saw them fighting, we didn't actually have yet a visual interpretation of haki, which is, the black part. And which, by the way, I suspect that you need observation haki to be able to see the actual black part of armament. I mean, something a friend mentioned, and I think it makes perfect sense, which would explain why we didn't see it before. I mean, in practice, the reason we didn't see it before is just a trope of the writer, but usually the readers see the word through the eyes of the main character or main characters. So we saw things in the eyes of Luffy, who didn't know about haki at the time, so he couldn't see it. And now that he does know about it, that he has observation haki, he can see the effects of armament haki. Anyway, next page. Luffy is attacking again with a double culverin this time, but here we get to the very interesting part, which is Doflamingo mentioning how Luffy hasn't even begun to get a real grasp on the powers of a Devil Fruit, and then he gets some threads out of the ground, and that really is we've never seen anything like that before. So far, Devil Fruits have only ever been about changing your own body. So the only real exceptions being Logia users, as they're part of the environment at the same time, so they can affect things outside. A good example is how Crocodile could turn just about anything through sand, but it's not quite the same thing. But although it might be related, but yeah, a Paramecia user turning the world around him into whatever his power does has been unseen, and Doflamingo explains that this is awakening. And I checked various translations and even looked at the Japanese versions myself, and with my limited understanding, I'm by no means fluent. I mean, I've lived for a while in Japan, but and I did read mangas in Japanese there, but again, stuff can be still awkward for me to read. But as far as I know, the translations have been correct, and it really is awakening. That's the name of the stage of Devil Fruit development, and Tofi explicitly says that when a Devil Fruit user is awakened, their power can start to affect the world around them. That is word for word what it says. It's not really up for interpretation. Although, does that mean that later Luffy will be able to make things around him rubbery? I don't know. I don't really think so. One, that really isn't much use to anything. And I also have to throw back to what we encountered earlier, which were Awakened Zoan users. And well, the only confirmed 3 we saw, or 4, can't remember, were just dumb beast. But maybe that doesn't have to do with awakening, and just them having been enslaved by the crazy people in Impel Down, and just having lost any kind of will. No real way to know. Yeah, and then you have the possibility of awakened Logia users. As to what exactly that possibly entertains, I don't know. Maybe that has to do with how, for example, the admirals managed to Logia their way out of damage that they should have taken, because it was said that whoever was attacking them was using Haki at the time. Maybe it has to do with that. Maybe it's just, as most people have theorized, that it's because they used armament Haki on themselves and defending against it. Because has it been confirmed by the fight between Zoro and Pika? If someone is using Haki to defend themselves, the only thing that's going to go through is stronger Haki. So if a Logia user uses it on themselves and their Haki is stronger than whoever's facing them, the blow's just gonna go through, like if there was no Haki involved. But really, what Awaken means for Devil Fruit users, I'm not sure. I think it's much more likely that it's dependent on what type of fruit you have. I mean, Doflamingo produces things as what's commonly called as a production type Paramecia, like Mr. Tree produces wax, and there's that Impel Down boss produces poison. Then you have the much more common type of Paramecia, which is like Luffy, which basically just turns your body into something else entirely. How in just strange whatever ways. And then you have the rarer type of Paramecia, which I think is like Law, where it's just random superpower number X is the only way I can call it. Something that just isn't a production type or a body altering type, and it's just something a bit different. Or Kid, who's Magneto. I mean, you could argue his body has become a magnet, but it's not exactly true. I don't think it is anyway. It just controls magnetism. Anyway, following page. Just the people getting really worried about Birdcage. People crying, just despair all around for the next couple of pages, until King Riku comes in and starts his big speech to give heart back to his people. Really emotional speech. Really finally putting the words that everybody's been thinking in Dressrosa for probably the past 10 years, that everything was just Doflamingo's doing. It was just his master puppeteering. It's just like really the really nice effect. And yeah, that's all there is. And then it really says that the only person that now can save them is Luffy, who's fighting as hard as he can, although we can see he's having a bit of trouble against Dofi. But yeah, we yet have hope, do not dare give up. That's really is the gist of King Riku's speech, and everybody gets it. Everybody gets their heart back, and yeah, Doflamingo getting very, very pissed, using his more and more attacks, like Beetle Waito, which all his attacks are just puns. They don't really translate in English, but the fact is because he actually pronounced them in English, but the last bit of it in Japanese is always Ito, which is often it or it in English, below white, and because Ito is string, that's just the thing. And yeah, big double page, Luffy shoving his head inside himself, ready to headbutt the strings out of the way, and then finally Gomu Gomu no Leo Bazooka, which I could only explain one thing, is Kamehameha or Hadouken, as usually his bazooka, his arms are horizontal, but this time they're vertical with the fingers really in the Kamehameha position. So yeah, that hit really, he went to town on Dofi this time. Like flew away and he's stuck in a wall, and utter domination is how it's described by the end. So this is really the end of the fight, most likely, the final big blast. Although maybe Dofi has something more up his sleeve. Has a lot of people have started to say it was a really short fight, but not really. I mean, for me, I found that the Dressrosa arc has been really dragging on, and if you actually go back to the point where Luffy and Law together started to fight Dofi, it's been going on for a long time. Except he's been kicking their asses most of the time. Luffy has only really got his grip on the fight for only 2 chapters. But I don't know. Maybe it's over. Maybe it's not. Really, we'll find out soon. Also, for just the one thing I forgot to mention is that Luffy did mention that his Gear 4 has basically an expiry date. He can't keep at it as long as he wants. He's gonna just deflate soon, I think. Plus, his haki, as we said, is really taking a toll on him, apparently. So, even if Dofi isn't down for the count yet, I don't think Luffy can keep going on for much longer. At least not like that. Anyway, this was my chapter review of One Piece number 785, sorry. And I'm Zopu. See you in YouTube. I'll see you next week.